The $650 million nobody knows about you have $650 million, and not one person in your life knows it. Not your neighbors, not your friends. Not the guy at the diner who's been pouring your coffee for 6 years and already knows you take it black, no sugar, every single morning. You're not hiding, you're just ordinary, on purpose. While everyone else spent the last decade chasing the look of wealth, you quietly became it. And the strangest part? The number didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived in a boring email. Subject line: Q3 portfolio summary. No exclamation point, no champagne emoji. Just you standing in a hardware store trying to decide between a 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch plumbing fitting. That's what $650 million actually looks like from the inside. It doesn't look like a yacht. It looks like a vending machine in a hospital break room that nobody else bothered to look at twice. Asterisk, before we get into how this happens, hit subscribe now. Every video on this channel breaks down a real financial mechanism hiding inside an ordinary story, and this one has 4 of them. You'll want to see where they connect. Chapter 1. The observation nobody else makes. It starts on a Tuesday. Not a business plan, not a spreadsheet, not a moment of inspiration, just a walk from your shift to the parking garage. You notice a vending machine is out of water. The one next to it is jammed. Most people feel a flicker of annoyance and move on. You stop. You ask a different question. Who actually owns this thing? It takes 40 minutes of searching to find out. 40 minutes longer than almost anyone else would spend. What you find is a small independent operator running a dozen machines across 3 buildings, clearing somewhere between $40 and $120 per machine per month after restocking costs and location fees. Educational note: this is called a micro cash flow asset. It's a business so small that institutional investors ignore it entirely, which is exactly why the returns can be disproportionate for an individual willing to do the legwork. Vending, laundry, ATMs, car washes, these are sometimes grouped under the term boring business investing. And the appeal isn't the size of any single unit. It's that each unit is small enough to buy with cash, simple enough to operate part-time, and stable enough that demand barely moves with the economy. You do the math. 1 machine nets $80 a month, 5 machines, $400, 10, $800. 25 run tightly in the right locations, somewhere between $200 and $3. 0 a month, money that shows up whether you personally show up or not. That last part is the actual discovery. Not the dollar figure, the architecture. A machine that solves a small, recurring problem for strangers and pays you every time without needing your attention. You spend $900 on your first used machine and place it in a mid-sized dental office lobby in exchange for a revenue split and a handshake. First month, $280 gross. After product, after the locations cut, after driving out twice to restock, $190 net. Your coworker made more than that in 1 weekend of overtime. Your cousin's signing bonus alone could have covered 4 years of this machine's earnings. Nobody congratulates you because nobody knows. You sit with that number on a Thursday night and feel something that isn't quite pride and isn't quite disappointment. But you don't quit because you're not looking at the $190. You're looking at what the 190 proves that the model works. So you buy a second machine, then a third. Chapter 2. Scaling Unglamorous. Once the vending machines are running, you start looking at laundromats the same way. Not as a customer, but as someone studying the ownership layer underneath. Educational note: laundromats are a classic recession-resistant asset class, and the reason is almost embarrassingly simple. Doing laundry is a need, not a want. It doesn't shrink when the stock market drops 18% in a quarter, and it doesn't get disrupted by an app, because clothes still need water and heat. Most laundromat failures trace back to bad operations, poor maintenance, theft, bad lease terms, not to a lack of customers. A single 15-machine coin laundromat in a strip mall can generate anywhere from $60,000 to over $200,000 a year in revenue, depending on location and machine count. You buy your first one for $47,000. It's in a working-class Ohio neighborhood. Older machines, 6 years left on the lease. The previous owner, a retired postal worker who ran the whole operation out of a spiral notebook, hands it over with books that are messy, but the underlying cash flow is real. Year 1, it nets $38,000. You don't celebrate, you roll it straight into the down payment on the next one. This is the part nobody sees, not the scaling, not the portfolio, not the compounding, just a person doing math at a kitchen table at midnight. A Tuesday observation becomes a Wednesday question, becomes a Thursday. Purchase becomes something that, 8 years later, has no name yet. Your accountant, Karen, has done books for small business owners for 19 years. She's seen sloppy LLCs, chaotic sole proprietors, restaurant owners keeping receipts in a shoebox. She doesn't impress easily. She reads your full portfolio summary slowly, without saying anything, then looks up. This is the most deliberately uninteresting portfolio I have ever seen. She means it as mild criticism. You take it as the highest compliment you've ever received, because deliberately uninteresting is the entire strategy. Chapter 3. The folder by now. The folder Karen is holding contains 4 separate, genuinely different asset classes. Let's go through each one, because each teaches something different about how boring cash flow compounds. 4 coin laundromats, 2 Midwestern states, combined gross revenue, roughly $290,000 a year. After utilities, minor repairs and part-time attendance, about $110,000 net. Not spectacular, not podcast material. But it arrives every month like rent, because functionally it is rent, paid by a need that never negotiates with a downturn. 2 municipal parking lots, bought at county tax auctions. These are the auctions held on Tuesday mornings that almost nobody attends. First lot, $31,000. Second, $44,500. Together they generate just over $58. Zeros a year in net income after maintenance and insurance, run by a single part-time operator. You rarely think about educational note. Tax lien and tax deed auctions are a genuinely underused acquisition channel for small commercial real estate. Properties end up there because of unpaid taxes, not because the asset is worthless, and the low attendance is precisely why prices can be so far below market value. It rewards patience and paperwork tolerance more than capital. 3 highway billboards in Tennessee and Kentucky. Here's the detail people miss. You don't own the advertising space. You own the land underneath it. Advertising companies lease that land on long contracts, 5 to 15 years, with built-in annual rent escalations, and pay you $800 to $400 a month per billboard. Whether the ad space above is booked or not. Educational note. This is ground leasing, and it's one of the lowest maintenance real estate structures that exists. You're not managing tenants, fixing anything or filling vacancies. You're collecting rent on dirt from a tenant contractually obligated to maintain the asset sitting on top of it. A commercial cleaning companies. Bought 2 years ago from a retiring owner who'd built it over 31 years into something that ran almost entirely on its own momentum. 12 contracted clients, office buildings, a medical clinic, 2 school districts. Annual revenue just over $1.1 million on a thin but reliable margin. Educational note. This is a cash flow acquisition, buying an existing, profitable small business from a retiring owner, often at 2 to 4 times annual cash flow, rather than starting one from scratch. An entire wave of small businesses is changing hands this decade as baby boomer owners retire, And most of them never make headlines because the businesses themselves are unglamorous. That's exactly why the price-to-cash flow ratio tends to be so much better than in flashier industries. Karen asks if you're planning to pivot into anything more growth-oriented, a tech play, maybe multifamily real estate, something with upside. You tell her no. She nods like she expected that answer, without fully understanding it. What she's missing is the logic underneath the boredom. Every asset in that folder serves a need that does not go away, not in a downturn, not when interest rates spike, not when some new platform disrupts how people shop or work. People park cars. People wash clothes. Buildings get dirty every day, and someone has to clean them. Drivers see the billboard whether they want to or not. There's no app for any of it. There's no disruption coming. Nobody is going to out-innovate a parking lot. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, subscribe. This channel exists to pull the actual mechanics out of stories like this one, not just the headline number. Chapter 4. The Math of Looking Ordinary. There's a guy at a networking event. You've seen his type before. Plain white t-shirt, $340, which you know because you looked the brand up once. Matte grey Range Rover with a custom wrap. He talks about his portfolio, the way some people talk about their personality, loudly, in the direction of whoever might be listening. He is performing wealth, carefully and expensively. You drove here in a 2019 Honda Pilot with 91 stolen miles and a cracked rear bumper you've been meaning to fix for 8 months. You're wearing a fleece from a sporting goods store, on sale. Your watch tells time and does nothing else. When he asks what you do, you say you own a few small businesses, laundromats mostly, some other stuff off. You watch him run the calculation in real time, the car, the fleece, the laundromats, and sort you into comfortable, not worth the full pitch. He turns slightly towards someone else. That small dismissal is worth more to you than anything else that happens that night. Because the moment someone underestimates you, they stop watching you. And the moment they stop watching, you can do whatever you want. Educational note. This is the actual mechanics of stealth wealth. And it's not really about modesty. For some people it's a philosophical stance, but functionally it's a cost avoidance strategy. Every visible marker of wealth, the car, the house, the watch, acts like a signal that changes how people behave around you. It invites requests, changes negotiating leverage, and attracts attention from people who assume you have money to spare. Reducing visible signals reduces that friction. It's not free, it costs some social status, but the trade-off is deliberate. Look at the actual numbers behind the choice. The average new car transaction price is around $48,000, with an average monthly payment near $735. You paid cash for the Pilot 4 years ago and have spent nothing on it beyond gas and oil changes since. Every dollar that isn't going toward a car payment is a dollar that keeps compounding somewhere else. That's not a moral position, it's just arithmetic, applied consistently for over a decade. Your house is the same story. A 3-bedroom colonial bought 11 years ago, paid off for the last 2. Your neighbors think you're a small business owner doing okay. They're not wrong. They're just missing several zeros. What you've learned, slowly and at some cost, is that visibility itself is expensive, in ways that have nothing to do with money. The moment people know what you have, they start relating to what you have, instead of to you. A cousin you haven't spoken to in 4 years finds a reason to call. Someone at church mentions a business idea they've been sitting on. It's rarely malicious. It's just what money does to the temperature of a room the second it becomes visible. So you keep the room cool. The fleece, the Pilot, the laundromats, all of it costs you almost nothing to maintain, and it buys back something money genuinely can't purchase. The ability to move through your own life without being treated as a target. Chapter 5. The phone call you didn't answer the way you could have your best friend since college is Marcus. Pick up basketball every Sunday for 6 years. He was at your mother's funeral. He's the kind of friend who calls on a random Wednesday for no reason at all. 3 months ago, Marcus calls on a Wednesday. And this time there's something underneath the conversation. He's been building a food truck business for 2 years, real following, written up in the local paper, a line at lunch most days. He wants to expand into a brick-and-mortar space downtown. The numbers make sense. The opportunity is real. He needs $85,000. You could have sent it before the call ended. It wouldn't have registered on your balance sheet. Roughly 11 days of passive cash flow across your portfolio. Not a sacrifice. Barely a decision. You didn't send it. Educational note. This is one of the least discussed lessons in wealth management. Capital without operational readiness usually doesn't solve a problem. It accelerates it. If a business's cost structure is loose, an injection of cash makes it looser, not tighter, because the underlying inefficiencies are never forced to get fixed. If an owner doesn't yet understand the difference between revenue and margin, or how a lease's rent escalation clause can quietly strangle a growing business, money just buys them a faster, more expensive version of the same lesson, and often costs the relationship along with it. So instead of writing a check, you asked Marcus if you could come by Saturday morning. You sat at his kitchen table with a notepad for 3 hours and went through his numbers with him. You found 2 cost line items quietly bleeding him. You asked about the new lease's rent escalation clauses, the personal guarantee. What happens in month 18 if foot traffic comes in 30% below projection? He didn't have answers, not because he wasn't sharp, but because nobody had ever asked him those questions before. You went back the following Saturday, and the one after that. By the 4th week, Marcus had renegotiated 2 vendor contracts, found a small business administration loan program he qualified for, and restructured his expansion timeline so it didn't need outside capital at all. Between the SBA loan and a small city grant, he found the 60 Hauptthals he needed. He signed the lease 6 weeks later. Educational note. SBA loans exist specifically to help small businesses access capital they might not qualify for through a conventional bank loan, often with a government-backed guarantee that reduces the lender's risk. Asterisk. They're underused because most business owners don't know they exist or assume the process is too complicated to be worth it, which is exactly the gap that a few hours of financial literacy can close. Marcus called the night he got the keys, crying a little the way people do when something they worked for actually arrives. He said he couldn't have done it without you. You never told him what you could have written the check for. You probably never will. That's not modesty, it's an understanding of what the story needed to be. His business, built by his decisions, owned by him in a way no check from you could have made true. But there's a room inside your life that nobody gets to walk into. Not the secrecy itself. You've made peace with that. It's the specific weight of watching someone you love struggle through something you could remove in 60 seconds, and knowing fully that removing it would be the wrong thing to do. Chapter 6. The email in the plumbing eyes. The email arrives on a Thursday at 7:12 a.m. You're standing in the plumbing aisle of a Home Depot. Not because you need to be there personally, you have people for most of this now, but because one of the laundromat locations has a slow drain. The property manager sent a photo, and you were already out. You're holding a bottle of drain cleaner in one hand, trying to remember if the pipe under that utility sink is PVC or galvanized, because it changes which product you need. That's when the notification comes in. Subject line, Q2 Portfolio Summary, Final. From Karen. Same 12-point Times New Roman she's used for 19 years. You almost pocket the phone without reading it. until something in the preview line stops you. Your total verified net worth across every business, every property, every liquid holding has crossed $650 million. You stand there under fluorescent lights. A forklift beeps somewhere in the back of the store. A man 2 feet away is comparing prices on copper fittings. Nobody is looking at you. Nobody knows. The number exists in an email, on a phone, in the hand of a person holding drain cleaner. The accumulated result of 11 years of Tuesday decisions, Wednesday transfers, and Saturday mornings at kitchen tables that nobody photographed. You thought it would feel different. You'd imagined a seam, a before and after you could physically feel. There isn't one. There's just the plumbing aisle, the forklift, and the quiet, steady hum of a life that hasn't changed because a number did. You reply to Karen with 3 words. Thanks. Looks right. Then you pick the drain cleaner back up, photograph the label for the property manager, and walk to checkout. You pay $847. You don't use a rewards card. You can never remember if you have one. In the car, before starting the engine, you think back 11 years to a used vending machine netting $190 in a dental office lobby, and a Thursday night spent sitting with a feeling that wasn't pride and wasn't disappointment. This is the same feeling, exactly the same, just with more zeros behind it. That's not nothing. It might actually be everything, because it means the feeling was never about the number. It was about the architecture. Proof that a system built quietly, without applause, runs exactly the way you built it to run, whether anyone in the plumbing aisle of a Home Depot has any idea or not. Chapter 7. What this story is actually teaching. Let's pull the lessons out into the open, because the story only matters if the mechanics transfer to your own life. 1. Small, boring assets compound because nobody else is competing for them. Institutional money chases scale. It ignores a $47,000 laundromat or a $31 zero parking lot because the returns look too small to matter at their size. That inattention is the opportunity for an individual investor. 2. Recession-resistant doesn't mean exciting. Laundry, parking, ground leases, commercial cleaning, none of these are venture-scale stories. All of them are demand that survives downturns, rate hikes, and new technology, because they solve a physical, recurring human need. 3. Visible wealth carries a hidden tax. Every signal of money, the car, the watch, the house, changes how people treat you. Reducing those signals isn't about humility. It's a deliberate trade-off between social status and reduced friction. 4. Capital without financial literacy often makes things worse, not better. The most valuable thing you can give someone struggling isn't always money. Sometimes it's 3 Saturday mornings and a notepad. 5. Net worth is a lagging indicator of a system, not a moment. The $650 million didn't arrive on the day of the email. It arrived through a decade of decisions that individually looked too small to matter. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one, real financial mechanisms broken down inside a narrative, not just a headline number. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. New stories drop every week, and every single one hides a lesson worth taking with you. See you in the next one, brother.